What happens when the world's most talented voice is silenced every day in a Paris metro station? When security guards treat her like trash? When passengers throw coins at her feet like she's a beggar? This is the shocking true story of how one African woman went from being humiliated daily to standing on the Grammy stage. And what she did to the security guard who tormented her will leave you absolutely speechless. The bitter January wind cut through the Châtelet metro station like a blade, but Aminata Diallo barely noticed anymore. Her fingers, stiff from the cold, found their rhythm on the djembe drum she'd carried from Senegal 3 years ago. The morning rush hour meant more people, more chances for someone to stop, to listen, maybe to drop a euro or two into her worn guitar case. She needed 40 euros by Friday, or she'd be sleeping on the streets again. Aminata positioned herself in her usual spot, near the long corridor connecting lines 1 and 4. The acoustics here were perfect, carrying her voice through the tunnels like it was designed for her music. She wore her mother's old boubou, the traditional Senegalese dress, now faded, but still carrying the bright yellows and oranges that reminded her of home. Around her neck hung the wooden beads her grandmother had blessed before. Aminata left Dakar with dreams bigger than the Atlantic Ocean she'd crossed. She began with a gentle rhythm, her palms warming against the goat skin of her drum. The first commuters rushed past without looking, their expensive coats brushing against the walls as they hurried to avoid her. A businessman in a €1,000 suit deliberately walked around her, making a wide arc as if she were contagious. Another woman pulled her child closer, whispering something that made the little girl stare at Aminata with fear. But Aminata kept playing. She had to. Her voice rose above the drum, singing in Wolof about the baobab trees of her village, about her mother's smile, about the dreams that brought her to this cold city, where nobody wanted to hear her truth. Samaye, Samabati, Mani, Legestu. My mother, my father, I miss you. That's when she saw him approaching. Pierre Dubois, the metro security guard, who'd made her life hell for the past 6 months. He was a mountain of a man, bald head, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. His uniform stretched tight across his belly. His face was already twisted in that familiar sneer that made Aminata's stomach turn. What did I tell you yesterday? Pierre's voice boomed across the station, making several passengers turn to watch. He loved an audience when he humiliated her. Aminata's hands stilled on the drum. Monsieur Pierre, please. I'm not blocking anyone. I'm just making noise. Just disturbing decent people trying to get to work. He stepped closer, and Aminata could smell the cigarettes and cheap coffee on his breath. This is not Africa. This is Paris. We have civilization here. A small crowd had gathered, some filming with their phones, most just watching with that mixture of discomfort and relief that it wasn't happening to them. Nobody intervened. Nobody ever did. I have every right to be here, Aminata said quietly, her voice steady, despite her racing heart. I'm not begging. I'm performing. It's art. Pierre laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the tiled walls. Art? This primitive banging? My dog makes better music when he's hungry. He kicked her guitar case, sending the few coins inside scattering across the floor. Pick them up and get out. If I see you here tomorrow, I'm calling the real police. They'll send you back where you came from. Aminata dropped to her knees, gathering the coins while tears burned her eyes. An elderly woman dropped 50 cents near her hand with a pitying look. A teenage boy laughed and said something to his friend about these people. Someone else muttered about immigrants ruining France. As she packed her instruments, Pierre stood over her, arms crossed. You know what your problem is? You people come here thinking France owes you something. Well, it doesn't. Go back to your hut in Africa if you want to bang on drums. Aminata stood slowly, her dignity intact, despite everything. She looked Pierre directly in the eyes, One day, Monsieur Pierre, you will remember these words, and you will wish you could take them back." He laughed again. "Is that a threat? From a street beggar?" "No," Aminata said, shouldering her bags. "It's a promise from God. He sees everything." That night, in her tiny studio apartment in the suburbs, Aminata sat on her narrow bed and cried. The apartment was smaller than her family's kitchen back in Dakar, just room for the bed, a hot plate, and a tiny bathroom where the shower leaked brown water. The walls were so thin she could hear her neighbor's television, always tuned to news channels that talked about the immigrant problem. She pulled out her phone. The screen cracked from when someone had knocked it from her hands last week, and opened WhatsApp. Her mother's face appeared on video call, pixelated and frozen every few seconds due to the poor connection. "Aminata, my daughter, you look tired," her mother said in Wolof, concern creasing her beautiful face. "I'm fine, Yai. Just a long day." Amita forced a smile. "Are you eating? You're so thin." "Yes, Yai." "How is everyone? How is Papa's health?" Her mother's pause told her everything. "The medication is helping, but the doctor says he needs the surgery soon. We're saving, but—" Aminata's heart sank. The surgery cost 3,000 euros. She'd been in Paris 3 years and had managed to save only 300. "I'll send more money next month, Yay. I promise." After the call ended, Aminata lay in the dark, listening to the sirens and shouts from the street below. She'd graduated from the Dakar Conservatory with the highest honors. She'd performed for the president of Senegal. She'd been offered a scholarship to study in Paris, to become a professional musician. But when she arrived, her diploma meant nothing. The conservatory position had been restructured. The music schools wouldn't even look at her applications. And so here she was, 32 years old, playing in metro stations, while men like Pierre treated her like garbage. But Aminata had something Pierre didn't know about, something nobody who passed her by could see. She had a gift that transcended papers and borders and prejudice. When she sang, really sang, the ancestors spoke through her. The griots of 100 generations flowed through her voice. And tomorrow, despite Pierre's threats, she would sing again. The next morning, Aminata woke before dawn. She'd made a decision in the night. She would go back to the metro, but not to the same spot. She'd find somewhere Pierre wouldn't think to look. At least not immediately. She needed just one good day, enough to pay for groceries and contribute something to her father's surgery fund. She chose Republique Station this time, setting up near the Line 5 platform during the morning rush. The commuters here were younger, more diverse. She noticed several African faces, though most avoided eye contact with her. She understood. They were the ones who'd made it, with their office jobs and proper visas. She reminded them of what they'd left behind, or what they feared becoming. Aminata started softly, tuning her voice to the rhythm of the arriving trains. She sang in French this time, a song she'd written about Paris, about dreams deferred but not destroyed. A few people slowed their pace. A young woman with purple hair stopped completely, mesmerized. She dropped a 5 euro note in the case and mouthed beautiful before rushing off. By noon, Aminata had made 30 euros, more than she usually made in 3 days. She was packing up to move to another location when she heard the commotion. Pierre's voice carried down the corridor before she saw him, shouting at someone on his radio. "She's here somewhere. Check all the platforms." Aminata's hands shook as she shoved her djembe into its bag. She grabbed her guitar case and started walking quickly toward the exit. But Pierre had trained his colleagues well. Another security guard appeared at the top of the stairs, blocking her path. "Going somewhere?" the guard asked with a smirk. Pierre arrived, panting and red-faced. "You think you're clever? You think you can just move around like a rat?" He grabbed her djembe bag. "These instruments are confiscated. You're banned from all metro stations. You can't do that, Aminata protested. These are my personal belongings. I can do whatever I want. This is my territory. Pierre yanked the bag from her hands, and the djembe fell out, rolling across the floor. He put his boot on it. Oops. The crack of the wood breaking was like a gunshot in Aminata's heart. That drum had been her father's, made by the master craftsman of her village. It was irreplaceable. No, she lunged for it, but Pierre pushed her back. She fell hard on the concrete, her palms scraping against the rough surface. More phones came out. Videos were being taken, but still, nobody helped. Pierre kicked the broken drum toward her. There, take your trash and get out. And if I see you in any metro station again, it won't be just your drum that gets broken. Aminata gathered the pieces of her father's drum, each fragment cutting deeper than Pierre's words ever could. She walked up the stairs and into the gray Paris afternoon, her dreams as shattered as the djembe in her arms. But she didn't go home. Instead, she walked to the scene, to the spot where the tourist boats passed. She had her guitar still, and her voice. She would not be silenced. She set up near the Pont des Arts, where street artists were technically allowed, though the police often harassed them anyway. As she began to play, the broken pieces of the djembe at her feet, like an offering, something extraordinary happened. Her voice, born from pain and defiance, an unstoppable hope, soared above the city noise. Tourists stopped. Locals stopped. Even the birds seemed to pause in their flight. She sang like she was calling down the heavens, like she was summoning every ancestor who'd ever been told they weren't good enough. The guitar strings vibrated with a power she'd never felt before. And in that moment, standing by the ancient river in this city that didn't want her, Aminata became more than herself. She became the voice of everyone who'd ever been silenced. That's when Marcus Johnson stopped. He'd been in Paris for a music conference, taking a walk to clear his head from the endless meetings. As the head of AANDR for Blue Note Records, he'd heard thousands of voices. But this was different. He stood transfixed for 3 complete songs, watching this woman, with tears streaming down her face, sing with more power than any stadium performer he'd ever signed. The broken drum at her feet, the scrapes on her palms, the pain and beauty in her voice. It was the most authentic thing he'd witnessed in 20 years. In the music business. When Aminata finished and opened her eyes, she found a well-dressed black man standing directly in front of her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Sister," Marcus said in English, then switched to French. "What's your name?" "Aminata Diallo," she replied, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "Aminata, I'm Marcus Johnson, from Blue Note Records." "That drum," he gestured to the broken pieces. "What happened?" Something in his voice, the genuine concern, made Aminata tell him everything. Pierre, the metro stations, her father's surgery, the conservatory that wouldn't recognize her diploma, the 3 years of humiliation. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he pulled out his phone. "Can you sing that first song again? The one in Wolof?" Aminata was confused, but complied. As she sang, Marcus recorded, occasionally wiping his own eyes. When she finished, he made a call. "Jenny, clear my schedule for tomorrow. I found her. The voice I've been looking for. Yes, I'm sending you a video now. I don't care about the meeting with Sony. This is more important." He hung up and handed Aminata his business card. "Can you meet me tomorrow at this address? 2 p.m.? We need to talk about your future." Aminata looked at the card. Blue Note Records Paris office. Her hands began to shake. Is this real? As real as your voice, sister. And bring the broken drum. We're going to tell your whole story." That night, Aminata didn't sleep. She Googled Marcus Johnson and nearly fainted. He'd discovered some of the biggest names in jazz and world music. He had 23 Grammy wins under his belt as a producer, and he wanted to meet with her. At 1:30 p.m. the next day, she stood outside the gleaming office building on the Champs-Élysées, feeling impossibly small in her only good dress, a simple blue thing she'd bought at a second-hand shop. The broken djembe was in a plastic bag at her feet. The receptionist looked at her skeptically until she mentioned Marcus's name. Then everything changed. "Oh, Miss Diallo, Mr. Johnson is expecting you. Please, right this way. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" The elevator ride to the 10th floor felt like ascending to another world. The doors opened to reveal an office that looked like a music museum. Gold records, Grammy awards, photographs of legends she'd only dreamed of meeting. Marcus was there with 3 other people. "Aminata, come in, come in. This is Jenny, my assistant. This is Philippe, our European director. And this is Sarah, our legal counsel." They all stood to greet her, to shake her hand, like she was someone important. "Please, sit," Marcus said, guiding her to a leather chair that probably cost more than her annual rent. "I've shared your video with my team, the one I took yesterday and some footage I found online from this morning at Republique." Aminata's heart sank. "You saw that? With the security guard?" "We saw everything," Philippe said, his French accent thick with emotion. "It's disgraceful how you were treated. That Pierre Dubois is already facing public backlash. The video has 500,000 views." "What?" Aminata couldn't process this. "But that was just this morning." Marcus pulled up a laptop. "Aminata, someone filmed the entire incident and posted it with the caption, 'This is how France treats its artists.' It's gone viral. People are calling for Pierre to be fired, but that's not why we're here." He clicked play on another video. It was her, singing by the Seine, the broken drum visible in the frame. The caption read, "The voice they tried to silence." 2 million views in 18 hours, Jenny said, and climbing. Sarah, the lawyer, leaned forward. "Aminata, we want to offer you a record deal, a 3-album contract with Blue Note Records. We'll start recording immediately, here in Paris. We want your story, your voice, your truth." The room spun. Aminata gripped the arms of the chair. "I don't understand. Things like this don't happen to people like me." "They do now," Marcus said firmly. "But I need to know you're ready for this. Your life is about to change completely. There will be interviews, performances, travel. Some people won't be happy about your success. That Pierre character is already posting online, calling you a fraud, saying you staged everything for attention." Aminata's jaw tightened. "Let him talk. I've been silent too long." "That's what I wanted to hear." Marcus smiled. "We start tomorrow. Jenny will help you with housing. We have an artist residence you can use. Philippe will arrange studio time, and Sarah will make sure you're protected and properly compensated." "What about my father?" Aminata asked quietly. "He needs surgery. We can advance you against future royalties," Sarah said. "Enough for the surgery and more. Consider it done." Aminata broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands. 3 years of pain and humiliation, of standing strong while the world tried to break her, all came pouring out. Jenny brought her tissues and water. Nobody rushed her. They let her cry. When she finally looked up, Marcus was smiling. "Sister, you've been strong alone for too long. You have a team now, a family. We're going to show the world what they've been missing." The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Aminata moved into a beautiful apartment in the Marais, courtesy of Blue Note's artist program. She called her parents on a clear connection from her new laptop, showing them the place, telling them about the surgery that was now scheduled and paid for. The recording sessions were magical. Marcus brought in world-class musicians, a guitarist from Mali, a pianist from Cuba, a bassist from New Orleans. But the centerpiece was always Aminata's voice, raw and powerful and undeniable. They recorded 15 songs in 6 weeks. Each one told a story of migration, of dreams, of resilience, of the Africa that lived in her heart, even in the coldest Parisian winter. Marcus had the broken djembe, restored by a master craftsman, and they used it on the title track, broken but unsilenced. The crack in the wood gave it a unique sound, a wounded beauty that became the album's signature. Pierre, meanwhile, was having a very different time. The viral videos had led to an investigation. Dozens of street artists came forward with stories of harassment and abuse. He was suspended, then fired. His union couldn't protect him from the avalanche of public opinion. He posted angry rants online about fake victims and reverse racism. But each post only made things worse. One evening, while Aminata was leaving the studio, she found Pierre waiting outside. He looked smaller somehow, his uniform replaced by a shabby jacket, his powerful presence diminished. "You ruined my life," he said, his voice slurred from drink. Aminata looked at him steadily. "No, Pierre. You ruined your own life. I just refused to let you ruin mine. I was just doing my job. Your job was to keep people safe, not to humiliate them, not to break their possessions, not to crush their dreams because of where they come from." Pierre's face contorted with rage. "You people always play the victim. I gave 30 years to that job. And how many dreams did you crush in those 30 years? How many artists did you silence? How many people went home crying because of you?" Aminata's voice was calm but firm. "I forgive you, Pierre, not for your sake, but for mine. I won't carry your hatred with me anymore." She walked past him, leaving him standing alone in the Paris night. The album, simply titled Aminata, released 6 months after that first meeting with Marcus. The launch party was held at the Blue Note Paris, a legendary jazz club. The invitation list included everyone from music industry executives to cultural ministers, and Aminata had personally invited someone special. The club was packed. Aminata took the stage in a stunning dress that mixed Parisian haute couture with traditional Senegalese design. The broken and restored djembe sat beside her, spotlit like the artifact of struggle and triumph it had become. "Before I sing," she said into the microphone, "I want to thank some people. Marcus Johnson, who saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. My team at Blue Note. My parents, who are watching from Dakar. Papa, your surgery was successful, and you're here with me in spirit." The crowd applauded. Then Aminata's eyes found a figure in the back. "And I want to thank Pierre Dubois." The room went silent. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Pierre, who'd been invited but nobody thought would actually come, stood frozen by the door. "Pierre," Aminata continued, "you tried to break me. You nearly succeeded. But in breaking my drum, you broke something in me too. My fear, my silence, my acceptance of being treated as less than human. So thank you. Without your cruelty, I might never have found my strength." She began to sing then, the title track, broken but unsilenced. Her voice filled the club, soared beyond its walls, carried across Paris and through the internet to millions of screens around the world. The song was about transformation, about how the deepest wounds can become the source of the most powerful art. Pierre left before the song ended, but not before everyone saw the tears on his face. The album debuted at #1 in France and hit top 10 in 12 countries. The critics were unanimous. Aminata was the voice of a generation, a bridge between worlds, a truth teller in an age of artificial everything. The Grammy eligibility period was almost over, but Marcus rushed the album through the submission process. It received 5 nominations: Album of the Year, Best New Artist, Best World Music Album, Record of the Year for Broken But Unsilenced, and Song of the Year for the same track. The night of the Grammy Awards, Aminata stood on the red carpet in Los Angeles, a universe away from the Châtelet metro station. Reporters clamored for interviews. Aminata, from metro stations to the Grammys in 1 year, how does it feel? It feels like justice, she replied. Not just for me, but for every artist who's been told they don't belong, every voice that's been silenced, every dream that's been dismissed. Inside the Staples Center, sitting in the front row with the biggest names in music, Aminata felt the weight of the moment. When they called her name for Best New Artist, she was so shocked she didn't move until Marcus physically lifted her from her seat. On stage, holding the golden gramophone, Aminata looked out at the sea of faces and cameras broadcasting to millions worldwide. This award belongs to every immigrant who left everything behind for a dream, to every artist playing in subways and street corners, hoping someone will stop and listen, to my parents, who sold everything to give me a chance, and to the streets of Paris, even the cold metro stations, because they made me who I am. She paused, then added, I want to say something to a man named Pierre Dubois. Pierre, if you're watching, I want you to know that I meant what I said. I forgive you, and I hope you can forgive yourself. We all deserve a second chance. This is mine. I hope you find yours. The orchestra began to play her off, but she had one more thing to say. To anyone who's been told you don't belong, your art isn't real. Your voice doesn't matter. Keep singing, keep playing, keep creating. The world needs your truth. Don't let anyone silence you. Not today, not ever. She won 3 more Grammys that night. The boy who'd laughed at her in the metro posted an apology online. The woman who'd pulled her child away sent a letter saying her daughter now wanted to learn the djembe. Even Pierre, months later, sent a simple message through Marcus's office. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Your music has changed me. But the most important moment came after the awards, in the quiet of her hotel room. When Aminata video called her parents, her father, recovering from his surgery, cried openly. Her mother sang a blessing in Wolof, and Aminata, sitting with her 4 Grammy awards, sang with them, the same songs she'd sung in the metro, now heard around the world. 3 years later, Aminata established the Broken Drum Foundation, providing instruments and music education to immigrant children in Paris. The first person she hired to run the security was a reformed Pierre Dubois, who'd spent 2 years volunteering with refugee organizations to confront his prejudices. Why? Journalists asked her. Why? Hire the man who tried to destroy you. Because, Aminata replied, forgiveness is the highest art, and everyone deserves the chance to change their song. The foundation's first building was in Châtelet, right above the metro station where it all began. And if you listen carefully on quiet mornings, you can still hear music rising from below, not just from the trains, but from the practice rooms, where children of 20 nationalities learn that their voices matter, their stories are valid, and their dreams are worth pursuing. Aminata still performs in metro stations sometimes, unannounced, sitting with the buskers and sharing their space. She always leaves her earnings in their cases, and she always stops to listen, really listen, because she knows that the next great voice could be right there, waiting for someone to hear their truth. The broken djembe, carefully restored, but still bearing its scars, sits in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now, on loan from Aminata's personal collection. The placard beside it reads, "Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from broken instruments and wounded hearts." This drum proves that what others mean to destroy can become the source of our greatest strength. And Pierre? He became one of the Foundation's most dedicated supporters, using his story as a cautionary tale in diversity training sessions. I had power, and I used it to hurt people, he tells each group. I thought I was protecting something, but I was just afraid. Fear makes us cruel. But if someone like me can change, anyone can. The last time Aminata and Pierre met was at the Foundation's 5th anniversary gala. He was checking invitations at the door. His job now, when she arrived. They stood face to face, these two people whose conflict had changed both their lives. Thank you, Pierre said simply. For what? Aminata asked. For showing me who I really was, and for giving me the chance to become someone better. Aminata smiled. We all have music in us, Pierre. Sometimes it just takes breaking before we can hear it. As she walked past him into the celebration, Pierre stood a little taller. Redemption, he'd learned, wasn't a destination, but a daily choice. And every day, inspired by the woman he'd once tried to silence, he chose to be better. The party inside was filled with music. African drums, Parisian accordions, jazz saxophones, classical violins, all playing together in beautiful chaos. Children of every color and background making noise, making art, making the world bigger with every note. And in the center of it all, Aminata sang, her voice carrying the memory of cold metro mornings and the promise of warm tomorrows, proof that no one can silence a voice that refuses to be quiet, that art will always find a way, and that sometimes the most powerful revolution is simply refusing to stop singing. This is the story of Aminata Diallo, from the metro stations of Paris to the Grammy stage, from humiliation to triumph, from silence to song, and it all started with a woman who refused to let a cruel security guard steal her voice. Remember her story the next time you pass a street musician. Stop. Listen. That person playing for coins might be the next voice the world needs to hear. And the security guard trying to silence them? They might just be afraid of a truth too powerful to contain. Music, real music, cannot be stopped by rules or racism or small-minded people with a little bit of power. It rises from the broken places, the wounded hearts, the silenced voices, and when it finally breaks free, it changes everything. Aminata still lives in Paris. She still takes the metro sometimes. And Pierre, now 63 and humbled by life, still works security, but now he protects the artists, ensures they have space to play, makes sure their voices are heard. Because he learned what we all must learn, that every voice matters, every story deserves to be heard. And the music we try to silence often becomes the song the whole world needs to hear. And in the Châtelet metro station, where it all began, there's now a small plaque that most people miss in their rush. It simply says, "Here, Aminata Diallo sang when no one would listen. Now the world hears her voice. What music are you missing in your hurry? Stop, listen, every voice matters." The end. But really, it's just the beginning. Because somewhere right now, in a metro station, or a street corner, or a place where they're not supposed to be, an artist is creating something beautiful. And the only question is, will we stop to listen, or will we walk on by? The choice, as always, is ours.